Really excited about the podcast today with Dan Cummings. I've spoke with Dan Cummings throughout his career. Just grateful to be in the same room with him for the time we spent today. But I'll tell you, hearing his stories from the criminal defense courtrooms in Chicagoland is fascinating. We'll get into how he became a lawyer, the different cases he had, the underdog stories, and just what kind of genuinely good human being Dan Cummings is, and you want him in your corner on a criminal defense. I personally, the proof's in the pudding. The moment I get a call on a criminal defense case, I immediately call Dan. He answers the phone. I got his mobile number, and if he can't handle it, he'll know the best lawyer in whatever county that we need to be in, and he'll analyze it. But the most importantly, if I get a personal friend that is in harm's way from the state, he will sit down with them and talk to them and trying to figure out a way, if they're in this situation because of some issue that can be changed, like whether they're, have a substance issue, whether they have some sort of learning disorder, whatever it is, that he'll get them to the right people to kind of square that out. So I hope you enjoy the podcast and the stories. I know I did, and I can't wait to have him on the show again. All right. It's so good to be back here with Dan Cummings, who we spoke to, I want to say about 6 years ago on our podcast, which was under a different name, et cetera, but same guy, although his life's changed a lot. We're going to hear about that today. But I want to welcome Dan Cummings to the podcast. Just a little background, how I know him. Dan is my go-to when I get a call, which I get them, I would say probably at least once a month of criminal defense calls. We don't do that here. We don't deal with any of this, like where people can be put in jail or probation or whatever. So my first call always is to Dan Cummings, who happens to be the father of Patrick Cummings, is our star lawyer here at the firm. So I'm really glad to welcome you, Dan, back to the show.
Thanks, Joe. How are you?
You know what? I'm coming back from a haircut today. And
you look fine.
You know what? I'm just, I'm happy that I was able to go to this thing, and I got it in 45 minutes. I was kind of hustling back here. I walked in the door, and my buddy Heather says, "Hey, there's a cup of coffee waiting for you up there," and Dan Cummings is in there. I said, "Oh, great. This is a good day." So listen, I always like to tell people that, so I grew up on the West Coast,
I do?
Yeah, so Washington State. And when I moved here, I went to law school back here, and then I ended up moving to Chicago. And so we're going to do a little bit of education for people that are listening throughout the country about how people in Chicago, how they get to know people. And so, especially South Side people, I know you were from Bellwood, but one of the things that's always asked is, hey, what neighborhood are you from?
Okay, so I grew up for a few years on the north side of Chicago, up near Andersonville, that area. We were in an apartment until I was about 4. Then we moved out to Bellwood. So Bellwood is kind of an outer ring suburb of Chicago, probably 10 or 11 miles west. And I grew up there until I was about 18. And then my parents, right when I went to college, they moved to the big house in Elmhurst.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. That was the dream destination.
Yeah, and they let me stay there a few years after that, periodically.
So now we're getting to the education part. What parish did you grow up in?
So I grew up in St. Simeon Parish in Bellwood, which now has been closed, but I also went to school there. And at the time, St. Simeon was one of the largest parochial schools in the city of Chicago diocese. We had a whole bunch of folks. We actually had a situation where we outgrew the building, so we were in like mobile homes that they refitted as classrooms. So we had big classes there.
And so Bellwood was like the thriving suburb.
Yeah,
when you were growing up.
Bellwood was like where you'd buy your first house. So if you had people from Chicago that wanted to get a reasonable house in the suburbs, that was a place that they could go. We were next door to Westchester, so Westchester was like that was the rich suburb in our world,
Right. And so that type of greeting would happen, and then what parish, and then what grade school you went to?
Right.
St. Simeon too, right?
I went to St. Simeon's, yeah.
And then they'd ask, "Hey, what high school did you go to?"
Yeah. Well, I was going to go to St. Joe's in Westchester. That was the plan. They had a really good basketball team. I played basketball. I thought that would be great to go there. But I had an 8th grade teacher, Miss Williams, who knew about this place, Fenwick. Because St. Joe's was maybe, 5 minutes, 10 minutes from my house. It was pretty close. She called my mother and said, no, he really should go to Fenwick. And I'm like, well, I don't know. That's like, St. Joe's was an all-boys school too, but they were next to a, IHM, which was a girls' school. So it was basically the same campus. So she convinced my mother that I should go to Fenwick. So Fenwick was all boys and kind of an old school. So I went there.
Did your brother Kevin go there too?
My brother Kevin went there for a year and a half. After my parents moved to Elmhurst, he begged my father to let him go to the public school, which was York, which is a really good school. And so Kevin went to York for a semester went for a semester at York, and then he begged my father, could I please go back to Fenwick, which is kind of funny. But if you know Kevin now, it's on brand. It's on brand.
That's good. That's good.
So Fenwick was a great experience, though. Like when I went from Fenwick from St. Simeon's to Fenwick, I thought I was pretty smart when I went to Fenwick until I got there and I saw all these other talented people and realized, oh, there's a lot of smart people here.
So, tell me a little bit about. Did you play basketball at Fenwick?
Yes, I played basketball through senior year, and I also played baseball.
Really?
Yeah.
So I know you're a sports fan. No?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and when did that start?
Oh God, that started probably 5 or 6 years old. I was the oldest, so my dad was very involved in coaching me. He had a sales job, so he was, now how when you go to a practice, like every parent in the world is at the practice. Just back in those days, guys were working in factories and they were on different shifts. So my dad he had a little bit of flexibility in the job, so he was my coach and coached a bunch of kids in the neighborhood and on little league teams and basketball teams, and that was kind of how it started.
So Cubs or Sox?
Sox. Oh, definitely Sox. Now my parents were
That's
Cub.
confusing to me.
Yeah, my parents were Cub fans, but I was sort of an oppositional type individual, so I went opposite of them.
Okay, so now Bellwood, is that north or south of Madison?
We lived, I guess, slightly south of Madison.
Okay, so you should have been a Sox fan.
a couple blocks south.
Okay, all right.
But my parents were North Siders. My grandmother and my aunts were all North Siders. They were all big Cub fans.
So how did the rest of the Cummings kids all become Sox fans?
My brother Kevin is a Sox fan, and my brother Jeff is a Cubs fan, a big Cubs fan. He's my youngest brother. And my brother Jim, he lives in Wisconsin. I'm not sure where he's at with that right now. Probably both.
So do you remember going to your first Sox game?
I do, but I went to way more Cub games because my mother used to take us. They used to have a thing called Mother's Day. So the mothers would get in free.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, like for afternoon games, and she'd bring us along. So I would go with my aunts and my mom and probably went every year to 2 or 3 ball games. I did beg my dad to go to a Sox game, so I think he got tickets to a Sox game when I was about 6 years old. So
you remember it?
Yeah, vaguely, I do remember it.
Who was playing that for the Sox back then?
Well, I know the first baseman because he caught a ball near us, Tommy McGraw, and they had pitchers like Joe Horlin and Gary Peters and players like that.
Yeah. So, what did your parents do for a living?
So my father was in sales. So neither my mother nor my father graduated from college. My mother did some typing and things like that, some secretarial work. But from the time I was young, she was basically at home until there came a point in which my dad got out of the sales business and bought a cigar stand from my grandfather. And we had a cigar stand like candy and cigarettes and things like that, one of those little stands in one of those buildings at 111 West Jackson, which was across the street from the Board of Trade.
Wow.
So eventually my father went back to sales and my mother ran the store. And
did you ever go there and work?
Oh, I worked there a lot.
Did you really?
Yeah, I worked there in law school and I worked there. And actually in college, I went to Benedictine College. She lost her employee and I set up my schedule where I just would go 3 days a week to school. And the 2 days I would go down and work there.
Were you a smoker at all?
No.
So you couldn't tell which was the good cigars and all that type of thing.
No, but I got to read about 5 newspapers a day.
And so did you get a lot of foot traffic from the Board of Trade guys?
Yes, I did.
Those were the guys, right?
Those were the guys. And of course, when I was working there in college and even in law school, there were times that I met some of those guys and might have spent some time with them after work.
Sure, I get it. You know, and that time at the Board of Trade, it was the full cry, right? It was like the pits and everything.
Yeah, you could walk across the street and they had a observation deck and you could watch the trading going on.
Which is crazy, right?
It was nuts.
Yeah, so I remember going there and seeing that live at one point, and I was like, it was just bedlam. And I couldn't understand how they could communicate with each other. But the number one thing I was thinking about, I didn't move here until I was after law school. So I was almost, I moved here in 92. So that's almost 30. And the thing that I was thinking about with these Board of Trade guys is that every one of them must have had an assigned psychologist to deal with the stress of losing everything in one day.
Yeah, no, they did. And it was interesting because there would be sometimes disputes about like what actually happened between two people. And they'd always have to, at the end of the day, get together and kind of iron out those disagreements because, when you're trying to communicate that way, did he say 10 or did he say 12? You know what I mean? There was always some issues that could come up there.
And were they able to work it out?
Usually. I don't know how the dispute was worked out if they couldn't work it out, but I think you had to have a reputation for being trustworthy and things of that nature, I would think, right? And so guys probably were able to resolve it normally.
Well, it's kind of like a relationship, right?
Yeah,
like like it's almost like a marriage. Yeah. I mean, you're in for the long term or not. And so if you're going to win that early argument, hey, I got him on this one, that trade, they're never going to trade for you again.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And of course, some guys were not just trading for themselves. Some guys were working for companies and that kind of thing too. So.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I kind of wanted to give the listeners a background of how we met. Do you remember how we met?
I do. I think so.
Tell me about that.
I think we met at we were working pads for the church, which was, let's see, what does pads stand for? But it's essentially shelter for people that are unhoused. You know, you're helping them clean up. I think we had the 3 to 7 shift.
In the morning.
So we would sort of patrol or be security, I guess, because most of them were sleeping. And then we would begin to kind of help them get up around probably 5:30 or 6 o'clock and kind of get things organized. And then people would come in with breakfast and things like that. Sometimes we'd have to, I don't know if this was appropriate, but I certainly took guys to the train station in my car because they wanted to go to the city or something because they would kind of kick them out at 7.
Yeah. 7 o'clock they were gone there and they needed rides, etc. I remember that.
I met you there.
Yeah. And small world type thing. I think we were both either at the same parish, either St. Margaret Mary or St. Joan. Our kids went to St. Joan of Arc together. But anyway, we ended up at this shelter, and I remember it was when your son Patrick was in law school because he would just move back here from Philadelphia, right?
Yes, he did. He went to Drexel for a year, and then he decided, I think he met a girl, so he wanted to come back home and finish law school.
Oh, I didn't know the girl thing.
Yeah, I think he actually had a scholarship to go to Northern, but he said, "Do you think the scholarship's still available?" I said, "No, it's gone. Believe me, it's gone." Yeah. So he became like a teacher's assistant or something, and he was able to kind of get his tuition paid for.
No, that's good.
That was good.
Anyway, long and short of it is I met Patrick and I was lucky enough for him to become a law clerk for me for a couple of years. While he went to law school, he was smart enough to basically go to law school full time and work for me for like 30 hours. I don't know. I guess he had his dad's genes because you were working the cigar place and he could do a bunch of stuff. I probably read some newspapers too online.
Maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, and so yeah, that ended up being a great thing for me because Patrick's worked for me since that time. So I'm grateful that I met you that night. I'm kind of a little bit fatalistic, and I think you run into people for a reason, and that worked out for me. So Well, thank you for
Well,
that.
it worked out for us too. I think our connection there was a guy at our church, Dick Henke, because I only went to pads because I went to poker night, and then when I went to poker night, I went to basketball because they used to play basketball on Sundays, and that's when he sort of started talking to me about, hey, why don't you go do this? He was a real good Catholic dude, so I kind of respected him.
He passed away.
I know that.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, and so we got to talk about Dick Henke for a second. So, if there's ever a role model in my life, one of them, it's this guy Dick Henke, who Dan was just talking about. This guy. Sales guy, he could have sold sand in the desert, man. This guy was like the funniest guy. And I don't know how he become this funny, but he could talk and talk and talk, and he liked to drink too, which was, a plus at the poker games, because he would drink, he would tell jokes, and he would tell you the same joke sometimes, but you would do anything for this guy. I'd go through a wall. So if he asked me to go to pads, I'm sure I would have gone too, because I saw, hey, I'll meet you at the pads, right?
Yeah. Well, he just would tell me about, but yeah, he was a guy. I really liked him because he was a very Catholic guy, but he wasn't really prudish in any particular way. Like, he played cards. He'd get angry when he didn't get the right cards. We played basketball together. He occasionally he'd get a little salty. So yeah, he was a strong, tough kind of guy. I kind of liked him.
Yeah. And just so you know, the basketball league. So I ended up being on the St. Joan of Arc team. Dan was on the St. Margaret Mary team. And we're all older guys at this point. I mean, we're in our 40s, 50s, and Dick's in his 65, 70. He's suiting up. I mean, it looks like it's something out of Happy Days. He's put on this stuff, and he's coaching the team. He'll bring the ball up a few times. Nobody's going to steal the ball from the guy because he's a legend.
No, but he'd still turn it over twice because he'd throw some behind the back or between the legs kind of pass. He used to like to try to pass it between other players' legs, which was a bad plan.
I can still see it, and it was like so in his mind he was still. I don't think he ever was a player, okay, but in his mind he was a great player for us as far as just fun to be around.
Definitely.
But so it's funny how those guys, from that type of guy, will talk you into doing whatever you want to do. And one of the things I think is needed more is that kind of community involvement, because he cared about everybody. He was like, there was no status in his world. You could have been somebody that everybody despised or whatever, and you could be the guy that's the richest guy in a company, et cetera. He treated everybody the same. And but I like the cards too. I don't. Yes. Have you ever been back for the cards?
No, but I am thinking about going back to the men's club. I haven't been back in a while.
Yeah, you gotta go.
I saw Dave Erickson, another guy at our parish, and at your party, and he suggested I go. So
yeah, come on out.
Yeah,
come on out. I want to talk to you. We call this the Underdog Podcast because as a personal injury firm, usually we're representing people that they have no business defending themselves or pursuing. It's an insurance company or a large company, and they're an underdog. They need us, and this probably happened a few times in your world where the state had an overwhelming case.
Yeah, like every case. I mean, these folks that get charged. I mean, they're going against the vast arrays of government power, government money, government finance, professional witnesses. It's they of anybody. As much as your clients need a lawyer, they need a lawyer too.
Yeah.
If not more.
I think the education, for me at least, started when I had a paper out when I was in, I want to say 8th and 9th grade. It may have been 8th through 10th. But I had to go deliver newspapers, and then every month, I had to go door to door and collect from people.
I did the same thing.
Did you really?
Yeah. Sun-Times Tribune and Chicago Today.
Yeah. I had 170 papers or something like that. And I was thinking about, the kids doing that nowadays, going door to door. And I'm like, as a parent, I don't know if I would have let them, with all the stuff that goes around. But it was like, I went around and I got to know the neighborhood. I got to know all the people. I got to know the ups, the downs, which people were avoiding payment, which people were just regular people that would just pay on time, which people would be unbelievably generous at Christmas or whatever it was. people that just want to help me for no reason, all that stuff. You learn the human condition. And I think it's almost like when you had your job doing that, as well as the cigar place and dealing with that, you learn about humanity, the weakness, the strengths, all those types of things that kind of mold you into how to deal with juries, but also to just deal with the people that you represent.
Yeah,
huh?
I mean, I would actually at the cigar store, unfortunately, occasionally find people, stealing, shoplifting, and have to confront them and things of that nature. But I also, by and large, met a lot of great people.
I'm assuming you went to law school.
I did. This isn't California.
Okay.
You have to go to law school to have to buy here.
And so, not being a Kardashian and being in Illinois, so you went to what was called Illinois Benedictine College at the time, right?
Yes.
Got a degree from what? What was it? Was it
in political science? That was a mistake. I wouldn't do that again. I probably would have gotten a degree in history or English literature or something like that.
Yeah, because we know
political science isn't really a science at all. It's an oxymoron for the name of the degree.
Agreed. And then where did you end up going to?
I went to John Marshall Law School in Chicago.
Is that still around?
Yes, it's been. It was bought out by the University of Illinois, so now it's John Marshall at U of I Circle campus.
Okay. What did you do after that?
Well, I worked very short. So when I was in law school, about my third year, I started working for a guy, criminal defense lawyer, that was across the street from John Marshall, who ultimately got in some trouble and actually went to jail. But he was the lawyer. He was one of the lawyers for the El Rukin gang in Chicago. So for like a year and a half, 2 years, I worked with him. Even when I was a lawyer for a short period of time, I worked with him on cases that involved that gang. So a lot of violent offenses, things of that nature.
Wow. And mainly Cook County?
All in Cook County.
26 in California?
26 in California. A lot of crazy stories. I was dating my wife and at the time, and of course there were no cell phones back in those days.
Sure.
Okay, so I had to give some of these individuals, some of these gang leaders, like my girlfriend at the time, her phone number, because I was going to be there like on a Saturday afternoon, and so they would, if they needed something, they wouldn't call my boss, they'd call me at Gina's apartment, and she'd answer the phone, and she'd be, there's a guy on here, he sounds kind of mean.
Yeah. So why did you go into the criminal? It was that was the opportunity?
I was very interested in criminal. From Owen Marshall for the defense, show on TV.
TVs. I like Perry Mason, man.
Yeah, I used to watch those shows, and I just thought it was kind of, like the Underdog, the name of your podcast. Yeah. I mean, that appealed to me. But I was also okay to be a prosecutor too. So, sure. Which would be the opposite of being the underdog. That's the top dog. So, but I as a prosecutor, I think you'd learn the system, and ultimately, I would have probably transitioned into defense work at that time. I just liked it. I think the stakes were big. There was a chance to do a lot of trials. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I thought I could be good at it. So honestly, it just sort of appealed to me.
Any family that were lawyers?
No, my dad had a friend. You might know him. He's an older guy, Mike Hennessy. He was a PI lawyer in the city. He ultimately was he was a lawyer for the Chicago Park District for a while. He was a family friend. He was a PI lawyer. I did work for him too in law school. They didn't do a lot of criminal work, if any, but they did PI work and workers' comp and things like that.
When you work, did you go right into that fella's practice right out of law school then?
Yes, like probably, and of course he was going through some problems at the time. The guy I was working.
Did you know it? He was going through the problems, or did he know it was a hidden thing?
Well, I knew he was going through some personal problems. I didn't know about the maybe the stuff with the government and some other things that came to light later.
Not the gray. This isn't the Gray Lord stuff, is it?
It's Gray Lord adjacent. Yeah, Gray Lord adjacent. And he had some substance issues.
Yeah, okay.
So there would be situations where I'm like I was probably 6 weeks out of law school, and I'm doing a motion to suppress statements on a murder case. Okay, that just happened because he didn't show up 3 days in a row, and the judge said, well, I know you were a law clerk for him when you were in law school, but I believe you have your law license now. and there's two other public defenders who have two other defendants. So if he doesn't show up the third day, you're on the dance floor.
Oh my gosh! And did you do
actually
it?
did the motion and won the motion.
You got evidence suppressed.
Got the evidence suppressed and the case dismissed. Now, I think the judge probably had some inkling that I had the least culpable client and it would be okay if I did it because he probably had an idea what he was going to do.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that he knew what he was going to do. So.
How long did that relationship with that lawyer last?
Well, at some point, I had put a resume into the public defender's office in DuPage County, and I hadn't heard anything. And one day I'm at the office, and the public defender from DuPage County, who must have been down on a seminar or something in Chicago, he just shows up at the office and says, "Hey, you want to talk?" I go, "Oh, okay." And so he sort of interviewed me cold right then and there. And then when I got an offer, I was making more with the private lawyer that I mentioned. And my wife-to-be girlfriend, when she heard about the offer, she's like, pack your bags, get your files. You're going out to DuPage County. She was because she had known him and she thought he was a little bit of trouble. So she just thought this would be a better situation.
Yeah, she didn't want her future to be the same type of problems as that guy.
Yeah, and she just thought maybe you just get with a better group of people. The public defenders, he was a really great guy. He ended up being a judge. He was a great mentor to me too. So it was a good, very, very good move for me.
So where was your life then? How long after you accepted that job, did you get married and all that?
I took the job in 1987, and probably within a year, we got married in 1988, September 1988. So I was probably in the public defender's office for about a year.
Okay.
We got married.
And then how long did you stay at the defender's office?
Like 4.5 years. I took a job with another private defense lawyer, Ron Sadowski, in DuPage. He had a pretty big practice at that time, and he was friends with the public defender. So I was pretty surprised. The public defender said, "No, I think this is a really good opportunity, and you've done what you can do here, and I think you should go with him." And that was a good decision. I stayed there for 2 years, and then when I figured out I could make it on my own, I started my own practice.
How old were you?
1994.
How old were you?
I'm 33, maybe.
Okay, 33.
Yeah, 33.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me what life's like as a public defender. I'm assuming you get some pretty big cases, huh?
Yeah, well, when you're a public defender, I mean, first of all, you don't have to chase any business because the business is already there for you.
Right.
Okay, you just get assigned cases. So, yeah, you can get the worst of the worst. The worst case I got was because I had been a public defender when I was in private practice. The public defender who became a judge appointed me on a triple murder case. So, but a public defender's job is basically, you might have 15 to 20 files every day. So you're dealing with people in custody, out of custody with various kinds of crimes, DUIs, battery cases, drug cases, and then murder cases, rape cases, attempted murder cases, all kinds of cases. And usually it takes a lot of patience because a lot of these folks think they're getting the worst lawyer that they could get because it's a government lawyer, and why would the government be paying you to represent me? Doesn't the government want to convict me? And so there's a trust issue a lot of times. So that was a really good experience to try to convince, people that you were on their side, and the fact that you were paid by the government had no basis on how you're going to represent them.
Right. Little inside baseball that maybe some people don't know. One of the things that you're buying when you hire a lawyer, any type of lawyer, criminal defense, personal injury, is familiarity with the courthouse, familiarity with the system. And the great thing about hiring somebody that lived 5 years as a public defender is they see all of the courthouse, all of the judges. They know all the clerks. They know what the jury pool's like. They know the system. So there's no mystery when they get a case, and a real world case, of what's going on. Did I sum that up all right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's the law that's in the books, and there's the law that you learn in law school. And frankly, around 90% of it, I don't use on a day-to-day basis. I mean, what I use is about 10% of what I learned in law school and 90% of what I learned in the courtroom.
Yeah.
and watching other lawyers and watching other judges and watching how cases go, and just the experience of handling your own cases.
Yeah.
You learn by doing, right?
I think it's conservative. I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
people ask me like, well, hey, where should I go to law school? And I basically tell them, well, I would try and get into a law school that you could get out of with having almost zero debt. And, I've been practicing law I think in a couple of years, it'll be 40 years. Is that right? 88. Is that?
You're getting close. Probably 30, 38, probably.
Yeah. 38 now. So, and the number of times somebody asked me or I went to law school from the bench was 0.0. And so, you make, I tell people, hey, listen, you make your future. You're based on your experience, what you do. There's so much stuff outside of, when you're in the courtroom. 99% is outside the courtroom. It's your imagination. It's your hustle. It's all that type of stuff. So what kind of conversation is that with your wife saying, listen, I got the government paycheck. I got all that stuff. And I'm going to just go do it by myself. I'm going to leave that somebody else paying me. How did that conversation go?
She was very, very concerned. Okay. Let's put it that way. I think we might have had, I don't know, $13,000 or $14,000 in the bank. That was about it. Because I had a deal with my boss, the criminal defense lawyer that I went out with, that I could keep a portion of what, I was going to keep a portion of what I brought in. I was really pushing to bring in money. I was incentivized to do it. So I kind of figured out after 2 years that I could do it, and of course I pumped myself up. I listened to all those, positive tapes, the Zig Ziglars of the world, the Anthony Roberts, all that kind of nonsense. But I needed that at the time. You can do it. And so she got on board with it, and then it kind of worked slowly. It kind of worked slowly. I was getting cases from like public defenders would send me cases, and a lot of lawyers I met would send me cases. And at the beginning, I'd cover cases for other lawyers, that kind of thing. And I had a decent reputation when I left the public defender's office. So I was getting some cases, and then I had a judge appoint me on a big case, which I think really helped me.
Is that big case that Caffey case?
Yeah. I mean, I was doing okay, but it was probably 1996. I'd only been out on private practice for like 2 years. And that was, that was a case that people don't remember, but it was basically daily coverage by all the local news stations.
I remember it.
And so we were on TV, saying stupid things probably. And but it was a really tough case. But I was able to bring in a lawyer, Paul DeLuca, who's become a lifelong friend, and we've done a lot of cases together. So it was great to have him. He had been like the first assistant prosecutor in the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office. He was then in private practice, so the judge let me bring a lawyer in, and we kind of went forward from there.
That's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I remember that because I had just moved here, and I didn't know you then.
Right.
I didn't know you then, and I was like, gosh, somebody's going to get appointed on that case. And ended up being you. I didn't even know it. And I'm like, how can they do that? It's going to be so hard on the family, all that kind of stuff. And what's it like when you get appointed to a case that's so heinous? How do you handle that emotionally when you get that appointment from a judge? Can you say no?
I could have said no. I didn't feel that with this particular judge, the guy who had hired me as the public defender, who had now become a judge, it didn't seem like it would be a good idea to say no.
Okay.
But I certainly could have said no.
Yeah.
Because DuPage County has enough lawyers that there's other lawyers that could handle the case. If I was in like a rural area where there weren't a lot of lawyers, and then you might be ethically bound to actually take the case.
Right.
It just depends on the situation. But no, I wouldn't say I was excited about it, but I knew it was an important case and I should do it.
This is an underdog case.
Oh, this was this was a hellacious underdog case. But I did have a client that took the position he wasn't guilty. So.
Oh,
yeah.
yay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah. So basically, in that circumstance, rather than focus in on the gruesomeness of the case and the horrendous facts of the case, you try to figure out, like, what's the evidence against this guy? He's presumed innocent. Is there a way to potentially litigate the case and win the case? Is that a possibility? And so you kind of put your mind into that. And then you're also at the same time, because it was a death penalty case, you're also working the mitigation angle. Like, if he were to be convicted, how am I going to present this case to the jury to try to prevent, because this was a real, when you have a triple homicide where a baby is taken out of the womb and a 7 and 11-year-old are killed, that's a real death penalty case. If you're going to have a death penalty case, those would be kind of like poster children for it.
So yeah, this rocked DuPage County. This was a case in which some people found a pregnant woman, tried to remove the baby from her. Were they successful?
They did remove the baby, and the baby lived, and the baby's still living.
Baby's still living, and the mom died, obviously.
Mom died, and the 11-year-old died at the scene. The 7-year-old was taken from the house, essentially kidnapped, was kept at various locations, according to the evidence, for a day or so, and then he was killed. So it was a bad case. I mean, it was really hurt from a fact standpoint.
Are any of those people still living, the defendants?
I think they're all still living because, as you remember, George Ryan, he commuted everybody on death row and got rid of the death penalty. So they're all in for life.
No possibility of parole.
No.
Okay. And so, how many years did you handle that case?
That case went on about 3 years, and then there was an appellate process that went on that I wasn't involved in, but that went on another 10 or 15 years.
Oh my goodness!
Because there's all kinds of direct appeals, and then there's a federal habeas corpus to be done, and there's post conviction to be done. So it was those were other lawyers that handled that part of the case.
And so I'm curious about that conversation. I don't want to get into the spousal privilege.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
I don't want to get into it. I do, but I kind of do.
Right.
So you get appointed by this judge, and you're getting your briefcase. You get in what kind of car are you driving at that time?
Probably a Corolla.
Okay, you're in your Corolla. You're driving. Are you living in Naperville at that time?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. You're living in Naperville. You get home, and hi, honey. No cell phones at that point, right? Or were there cell phones?
No, I think
close.
The giant ones came online probably in about 1993 or 4.
So getting close to the cell phones. But
yeah. So
when does your wife find out that you've been appointed to this and that you've accepted it? Or did you even ask her?
No, I definitely didn't ask her. She was going to be on board for it.
Yeah.
She was going to be on board for it. I mean, remember, I had Al Rukins calling my girlfriend's phone on a Saturday. Chief Mau Mau or something. Honestly, that's how they would call up. They had different kind of nicknames. And, and she went with me one time. When I worked for the other guy, the lawyer I worked for calls me up and says, go to, where was the street? What was the name of the street again, where they sold all kinds of goods and had, like, on the west side of Chicago?
Maxwell
Street. So
yeah.
She says, he go meet this guy on a corner and get paid. Okay. So she's with me. We drive over there, and some guy in a white tracksuit runs to my car, puts like a brick of money in my hand, and off we go. And I said, man, that looked like a drug deal or something. It was actually a lawyer-client deal, but okay.
And then, Regina's in the car with you?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And so she was counting it?
No, but she goes, this is whacked. I go, yeah, this is whacked. You're right.
So she was used to the system by then, because you were in for what, about 8 or 9 years by then? Or
yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think she was a little taken aback at how horrendous the crime was and the allegations and the fact that there was going to be a lot of publicity.
Yeah.
But she felt like, I was new at new in private practice on my own, and I probably should take the case and probably should do the case. And, it was a weirdly good experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you were able, one of the things I guess you'd look at it is, so one of the parts that this is another inside baseball thing for people listening is that people think that law is a profession, which it is. And it's just like law school is where you go to learn law and all the time. It's not true. Law is a business. And part of the business is that people cannot call you unless they know you. And that's the reason why you have all these irritating ads on TV all the time, or billboards as you're driving to and from O'Hare and all over the place, because better known is greater than better. And so the people that are, so when you get a case like this, and where it's so notorious on the news every day, that one thing that is known is that Dan Cummings becomes the guy that defends criminals as just as a general rule, and becomes a name in people's house, right?
Right, and for lack of a better word, your Q rating goes up, okay, because the judge appointed you. So the judge would not appoint a schmuck,
right?
Okay, essentially, the judge appointed somebody he thought could handle the case.
Yes.
So that gives you some gravitas in the courthouse with other lawyers. Oh, he appointed you. You must know something. I mean, so that was another thought. With trying to build a business, trying to build a practice. This, even though like it would be to common people, how could he represent this person? For me, it was like, you could say that in a lot of cases that I have. That really goes by the wayside. If you're going to do this work, you don't think of it like that. You think of it like, hold the government to their burden, make sure the government can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not even whether he did it or didn't do it. It's what's the level of evidence? What's the quality of the evidence? What kind of constitutional rights were potentially violated? How did the police gather the evidence? All these kinds of things. How do you best represent the person as opposed to focusing in on the allegations, which if you do focus in on them, that would probably make it a little harder. I mean, you have to focus in on it to defend it, but to just become, I guess, disgusted by it, or when you're in it, you're not thinking along those lines. You're thinking how best to represent this person and what your ethical obligations are to the client.
I remember one time you explained it to me, which I thought was a pretty good one, was that you were actually defending the system.
Yeah.
So the system is everybody in America, which in my view, is the best place to live. I lived in London for about 9 or 10 months. And then I came home, I kissed the ground, because it was just a different feel, because I knew that I was protected by the Bill of Rights, that somebody couldn't unreasonably search and seize, all this type of stuff. I had my rights to attorney. I had all these rights that you don't have when you leave the country. And you explained to me one time that, hey, listen, I focus on defending people's constitutional rights and the system enforcing the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this person did this thing. And to do my job to make sure that they don't make the charging papers a bunch of other stuff that isn't in there, so they can make it unfair for him, to whittle it down so they have to prove that this precise thing happened at this precise moment, and it was in this jurisdiction, and it was none of his rights were violated. All these types of things, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, in that case too. I mean, you had the entire community ready to pounce on the guy, and right, I mean, I understand that, and I was like, me and Paul, or Paul and I, were the only two sort of standing up for this underdog, and there was always a possibility, that he was innocent. It proved out not to be true, but again, he never admitted to the police he did it. He never admitted to us he did it. So there was certainly evidence against him. Okay, don't get me wrong, but we just focused in on trying to do the best possible job we could for him, making sure his rights were protected.
And it went to verdict, right?
Went to verdict. He was found guilty. He got the death penalty. We had mitigation experts. We were able to, the government, and this is the other thing, it's kind of interesting. The government had to spend money on his behalf to present mitigation experts that would argue why he shouldn't get the death penalty. And we were able, so not only were we paid, but we had experts that got paid by the same government that paid, the prosecutor. And
sure.
So that's kind of an interesting piece that we've got here that I don't know if they have everywhere else.
They don't have it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Did the other defendants get the death penalty too?
One guy didn't get the death penalty, and the jury said the reason he didn't get the death penalty, because they asked later, is they didn't really feel like the state even proved him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, but they found him guilty of murder anyways, but thought, well, let's not give him the death penalty.
Wow. That's kind of a tough thing for that guy to hear secondhand. Did he ever hear that other than on this podcast?
I think it was reported in the paper. Yeah.
Did he ever win an appeal?
No.
He's still there. Okay.
No, because the jurors' comments to the press afterwards were the jurors' comments by the prosecutor to the press about what they said isn't necessarily going to be evidence in the case.
No, it's not. But it's a new thing.
Yeah.
It's a new thing
Yeah.
that people are very concerned about.
I'm sure. I don't know specifically what he brought forward on his post conviction and his habeas stuff, but all his efforts were rebuffed.
Tell me a good underdog story where, I mean, have you represented people that didn't do it?
Oh, I definitely. Well, I mean, certainly they didn't do what they were charged with. I mean, I did so there's a couple different things. So I've had a couple baby deaths, okay? Like shaken baby cases.
Oh, that's
okay?
brutal.
Right. And we represented one girl that was convicted that Paul and I are convinced she was innocent. She's doing 31 years. We had
Hold on
another
a second. You, to this day, believe she didn't do it.
I believe she didn't do it, yes.
But she's serving 31 years in a penitentiary?
Yes.
Where at?
Well, it used to be Dixon, but now they've changed the penitentiary to a different place for women. So
Southern Illinois?
Yeah, she's in the Illinois State Penitentiary.
How old was she when she was convicted?
19. She was a daycare worker at a kind of a large daycare center. And the evidence against her was very thin, but unfortunately they had her in custody for 10 hours the next day, and she denied having anything to do with the baby's death for about 7 hours, and they kind of broke her.
Mm.
So,
okay. And so you believe that she was innocent, and
yeah,
you went to a verdict, and she was found guilty.
Went to a verdict. She didn't testify. The judge, we had hired some what are called false confession experts. You've got a situation now with DNA where we know that about a third of all confessions, at least in DNA cases, where we know the person is exonerated, but nonetheless they gave a statement that implicated them. Okay, that went to the jury, and the jury heard that before we had the DNA that was part and parcel of the case. So in about a third of those cases, we know that the confession that the person gave was false because they've been exonerated by DNA. So they didn't commit the rape that they allegedly committed, or their DNA wasn't on the dead body and somebody else's was. And yet in a third of those cases, people have confessed. And there's certain factors as to why somebody might confess. Like for instance, the false confession expert we wanted to call wasn't going to testify that this confession in and of itself was false, wasn't going to come to that ultimate opinion, but was going to say based on studies, there's like 4 or 5 or 6 factors that might impact whether or not a false confession is, whether or not a confession is false. For instance, juveniles, those are young people, can be broken relatively easy by the police or easier by the police. People with low IQ. So our client, who was 19 at the time, based on testing, had like a verbal IQ of like 70. So that's right on the border. And she was a very simple girl. And to have someone like that in custody, isolated from her family for 10 hours, and you have experienced police officers, have her in a very small room, she denies it 6 times or for 6 hours. And then they kept saying, well, we talked to our pathologist and this injury had to have occurred based on some human agency. Some human did this. This didn't just happen. And if you do the research and look at things on shaken baby and abusive head trauma with kids, really young kids, I don't think we have all the answers yet. I don't think we have all the answers. So we had 2 experts. They had 2 experts. But at the end of the day, the jury basically said that, they were interviewed later, that the state had their experts, the defense had their experts. They canceled each other out. But she told us what happened. In other words, they gave weight to her statement.
Mm.
And we played the whole statement. We played it for 10 hours to show the jury how the thing changed over time, what pressures were brought to bear. But I think without the false confession expert, so the judge basically said that this wasn't subject to expert testimony because the jury was going to see the confession for themselves for 10 hours, and they could make a judgment on their own as to whether or not there were problems with how the statement was taken. But I think without the context, in other words, a false confession expert has been used in Illinois and can be used, but this particular judge didn't feel it was appropriate.
Oh, so they didn't even testify?
No, they knocked us out in pretrial hearings.
Oh,
yeah,
that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, and then there was a big issue about whether or not the baby had a skull fracture or it was just sort of like a suture kind of a thing. And they clearly didn't disclose some X-rays that would have helped us in the trial of the case. That ultimately got disclosed later on appeal. And so there was a whole post-conviction process that went on. But basically, she's lost at every level. So, but yes, I do think she was innocent. I think the state's theory of how this happened, because this allegedly happened in a daycare center, where at 4:15, like 15 minutes before work was over, and you have to understand this daycare center is like windows all over. So like we're in a room here, we're sort of in a private area. You could push me, and we do have some people in here, but if there would be nobody to look at through a window and see what's going on. So this was a very busy this wasn't at someone's home. So their theory of the case, I just thought was absurd.
So, well, that's a tough one to deal with, man.
But the baby cases are hard. I mean, because he had another one in Will County where a father was charged with a shaken baby case. And this was a case out of Will County, but the baby had died at Lurie in Chicago. So the Cook County medical examiner did all the testing, and they ultimately lost the brain and they lost the eyes before the defense could do testing. So that was a case that we pled it down. He got probation and an involuntary manslaughter. That was a case I thought we could win, but the defendant, because he was going to get probation, his wife and mother-in-law, they said, you can't take a chance.
So probation means he's not going inside.
He didn't go inside. No,
okay.
No.
So is that, can you give us examples from Underdog, like where, I mean, right when you got the case, you go, this is really, really bad and I'm going to lose and this is horrible. But then you came out and you got the W?
Yeah, I don't know if it was, so the last murder that I did was a very strange one. It was out of a bar in Elmhurst. And I got a call because this particular individual who had been arrested was actually like boyhood friends of my brother's. So I knew of him. I didn't know him well. And I heard about this fight, and I got a call from the wife and one of the defendant's friends, and said, well, there was a stabbing. So I go to the police station, and I'm of the belief this is an aggravated battery case, like a class 3 felony. Like, I don't know the condition of the guy that got stabbed. I'm led to believe he got stabbed once. And I've had cases where somebody stabbed somebody 25 times, they don't die. And I get there and I talk to the defendant. I say, okay, what's going on? He goes, well, I don't know the condition of the guy. I go, yeah, he got stabbed once. I'm sure he'll be fine. Well, I spend about 40 minutes there, and I talk to one of the sergeants as I'm leaving. And I said, hey, just curious, do you have any idea how the victim's doing? And he said, they don't think he's going to make it. And that was like a big shock, because I knew right then and there that we were going from a relatively, not a relatively simple felony case to the big one, murder. And it was going to be a thing. And that was, that case had a lot of pressure on me personally, because my brothers knew the guy, and I met the guy, and I thought he was just a great guy. And so we had a self-defense case that went on about 2.5 years, and we won the case. So it was awesome that we were able to do that.
A jury said not guilty?
No, we took a bench trial, because this is another thing. One of the things I've learned as I practiced is we did a lot of litigation pretrial motion practice in front of the judge, and almost started doing a bench trial from the moment we went to bond court, and trying to influence and trying to persuade the judge that this was a self-defense case, like this was a real self-defense case.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end, I just had a real strong feeling that the judge was on our side. So I knew, kind of in my head at least, that she was favorable.
So but again, on your side, you mean on the side of justice? I mean, so here, I think here's my thinking.
On our side, in the sense of she knew a lot of the facts of the case.
Right. So one of the things that I think about with and we're going to get into misconceptions.
Yeah, she certainly wasn't on our side because she liked us. I mean,
no, because most of those guys are prosecutors. I mean, was she a former prosecutor?
Yes.
Almost every. Yes, so just here's the other inside baseball. Almost every criminal or judge that's in the criminal system is a former prosecutor. Is that true?
Yes, in the felony room right now, I think there 5 of the 6 felony judges are former prosecutors.
And I think that's true in Cook County. I think it's true everywhere, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're putting a few more defense lawyers on there, but it's a wide difference.
Yeah.
Prosecutors versus defense lawyers.
And so it's, you're stacked. It's stacked. When you get in there, to me, it's like, the lawyers that I go in front, or the judges I go in front of in Cook County, a lot of the ones that are actually handling the personal injury cases are former prosecutors too.
Right.
They will go from criminal courts to civil courts, et cetera. And I don't even know what they think about it. But I guess my thought with these people that are the judges is that they're people and they want justice to be done. And so if I can kind of see or perceive from all of the stuff that we've done in our lives that, hey, they're going to want justice too. I guess there's some in the back of our mind. We know there's some issues that happen outside the courtrooms that we don't know about, but you can't live that way, right?
No, I mean, I think most of them are trying to do a good job. It's just some of them, they come with a perspective when the case starts out that at least in the criminal context, you're presumed innocent, kind of. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that they generally presume somebody innocent because they say, well, the police arrested the guy, the state's attorney has approved the charges, there must be something to it.
Right.
They won't say it, but I think they think that.
I think every juror thinks that.
Yeah. Well, I certainly think a lot of judges think that too.
So how much time was this guy facing if he got convicted?
20 to 60 years. 100% time. And this guy, like, he's 56 years old. He had a business. He had a family. He had no criminal history. I mean, he went to have a beer with his wife. He was at the bar with his wife to have a beer before picking up a pizza on a Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock. And this thing breaks out.
What kind of, how does he get a knife?
Well, he's a home builder, construction guy. He just he's carried a utility knife with him for 30 years.
Wow. So,
and he went outside because these guys had basically fought the bartender. They had broken every window in the bar, and they went out to try to take the guy's license plate. So that's what they thought they were doing. And once they came out there, these guys were wrecked. I mean, they were drunk, okay? And the guys that had basically beat up the bar and the bartender, they came at him.
Did they get charged too?
Well, the one guy died. So he obviously didn't get charged. And
he had his own charge.
And the brother, no, he didn't get charged. And we made a big deal of that. We asked that he be charged. He should have been charged. But that was a big witness for them, so they didn't want to charge him. But I got news for you. I think if he had stabbed the guy and he had lived, I don't know that my guy would have gotten charged, and I think they would have gotten charged. In other words, the state may have accepted the self-defense claim that he made at the time.
How many years did that case last?
That lasted 2.5 years, and we litigated the heck out of the case. I mean, we tried to get the indictment dismissed. We kept showing the judge this. We had a good video that somebody took from across the street on a cell phone, thank God, that helped us quite a bit as far as the violence of these two guys, the decedent and his brother. So I think that just showed me sometimes that you can almost win the case before the trial starts.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's kind of what happened here. I mean, and because again, then the trial went in the way we thought it would go in. But I think by the time we got to the trial, I felt pretty good about where we were at.
How long did the trial last?
A week.
And did she rule right after the defense rested?
No, she took about 3 days, which I thought was a good sign because I thought if she was going to find him guilty, she'd really want to
keep him there.
Well, he was out. He was on bond.
Okay.
Yeah, he was on bond. But she continued a short period of time, and she had a written ruling. So, it was good, and I was pretty. From the get-go, the way sometimes you don't know when they start rolling. They give you some starts and some fits and go one way or the other. But I think she was pretty good about, like, she had a strong ruling for us. So that was great. That was one of the best days of my practice, to be honest with you.
What? Tell me about your first meeting with him after you got the news.
The news of the verdict?
Yeah.
Well, he was there, of course.
Oh, she rendered the verdict. You had to come to court.
Oh no, the whole place was packed.
Okay, so hold on a second here. So you're trying the case because obviously the family of the guy that got killed is there too, right?
The family and friends and the friends of the defendant. There had been some hostility between the two sides during the trial. Okay, so I think we argued the case on maybe a Thursday or a Friday, and she had us come back on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, the courtroom is packed. I mean, the jury box is taken up. The media is there. Friends and family of the defendant, friends and family of the decedent. And, she had to make an announcement before the verdict that she wasn't going to tolerate any nonsense, because these kinds of things can happen.
Was Regina there?
Yeah, Regina was there. Pat was there. Charlie was there.
Was Paul DeLuca there?
Oh, he, of course, was there.
Did you guys try the case together?
We tried the case together. And Tim Stroh, I don't know if you know Tim.
I know Tim.
Tim was.
How long ago was this?
This 23 or 24.
Oh, so recent.
Yeah, recently. And so the defendant, after the verdict, because of the situation, the bailiffs had to hustle him out to the parking lot, and they provided security. So I talked to him in the car when we were on our way. So that was he was crying, and it was, and he's one of these individuals that's grateful. He touches base with us on the anniversary of the verdict, and sends us Christmas presents, and
I'm crying
and brings us tomatoes.
I can't even believe this guy. He's facing 20 years, and all of a sudden he hears from this court that he's not going anywhere. He's going to be able to see his kids, his grandkids, all that stuff. I mean, come on.
He had visions. He had visions of, like, is this my last Christmas? Is this my last Thanksgiving?
Oh my God!
And he would share that.
Did he have kids too?
Oh, he had 2 older kids. Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
And he had a great wife. She was like, she's an accountant. She was really good. She helped us because she would see things and she would bring them up. Sometimes people want to bring up stuff that's not that helpful, but she actually was pretty helpful.
Because she was there that night.
She actually called. Okay, so when the guys started fighting the bartender and started breaking all the windows in the bar, okay, and were pretty violent, she called 911, if you can imagine. Like, she's on the 911 call about the violence of these individuals. I mean, I thought there was half a chance, honestly, that maybe they wouldn't charge him.
Yeah, well,
and I don't think because I think the easy way out is to
charge him.
Yeah, and like, they went in front of the grand jury and they asked the police officer, "Did the defendant admit that he stabbed this person?" And he says yes, without the further context. But by the way, he said he stabbed him in self-defense. That never came in front of the grand jury, so the grand jury never heard that. And that was kind of the day that the law is really bad for us there to dismiss a grand jury indictment. But she said, the judge, I have great respect for the self-defense defense that you're presenting in this case, but I'm not going to dismiss the indictment. That was the moment I thought, she likes this defense.
So we were talking about some what we call underdog trials, and you got me kind of emotional there when you were talking about the fellow that was facing 20 years. For basically defending himself in the bar. And I'm thinking about that from a prosecutor standpoint. When we elect these prosecutors, one of the things that I'm thinking about is the discretion of whether they're going to charge somebody. And that's a big thing. And I guess the easy way out is to say, hey, we'll charge him, and then if he's not guilty, then he'll find his way out. And I'm trying to think, that just seems kind of wrong to me.
Yeah, I think sometimes they have the idea, well, let the judge do it, let the jury do it. We're not going to do it. I think those are hard decisions to make. I think they would say, I'll put the spin on it, what they would say, because what they told me was that they felt, and you have to understand, the decedent was about 6'3", 29 years old, had been to the Coast Guard, was in really good physical shape, was a 2.4 blood alcohol level. They said, well, he brought a knife to a fist fight. And it's like, no, he didn't bring a knife to any kind of fight. He was out there trying to take a license plate number, and your guy, or the decedent, attacked him. And there's cases that you can go across the country that recently, probably a couple of years ago, where a guy punches another guy, punches him, and the guy blacks out, hits his head on the pavement, and dies. So basically, you're allowed to use deadly force in Illinois if you have a reasonable belief that you are imminently going to be subject to great bodily harm or death. So clearly, when this guy came at my guy with his physical size and just what he had already done, if you think about, he literally smashed bar windows, big picture windows with his fist. That was on video. I mean, that's a guy that's a little out of control and could do damage. And so my guy reasonably could have, but their position was he used a knife. This guy just had fists, which that's not the law in Illinois, but that was their argument. And I think they could have made a choice not to charge him.
So one of the things that I, as lawyers, you mentioned Owen Marshall. Nobody knows who Owen Marshall is that's listening to this. Maybe the old people, but I loved Perry Mason. I really liked the whole thing, the private eye. I like the secretary. I like the whole thing. I thought that was the coolest thing. I didn't get into criminal law, but I liked it. But one thing in my career is, have I made a difference? Have I made a difference in people's lives? And did I, when I represented them, were they there? So do you have any other stories about people that, hey, they're actually free because of the work that I did, or me and my colleagues did, or my friends? Do you have any more of those type of stories?
Well, we had tried a case in 2019 wherein a guy previously had been convicted of murder, got 85 years, so he was going to spend the rest of his life in jail. Went up on appeal. I guess the public defender did the appeal. On appeal, he got a new trial. Okay, so it came back, and he had a second bite at the apple. So now he had been convicted, and they were losing.
Where was he? Where was he sent?
Stateville.
Now, why don't you tell people what Stateville's like? I've never been inside. Have you been inside Stateville?
Yeah, Stateville or Pontiac. That's another one where they keep murder defendants. Stateville's a really old prison. You could actually get lost in there. I've went and visited people, and they put you in a room. They lock you in the room with the guy, and some of these people are not that they're going to attack their own lawyer, but if they wanted to, I suppose they could. They just have a lot of tough, angry people there. They're not too happy because they've been convicted of a crime. They're usually serving a big amount of years. And it's where we house kind of the worst of the worst in Stateville and Pontiac.
I remember that one fellow was there. That was Richard Speck there.
He was at one of those places. Yes, and I've been to Pontiac too. So I've been to both.
Yeah, it's so this guy was sentenced to 85 years.
Yes, but then when I met him, he had gotten remanded because he was getting a new trial to the Cook County Jail. So he was awaiting trial in Cook County,
which is not great.
No, but it's not great at all, especially where he was housed.
Tell the listeners what Cook County Jail is like.
Well, Cook County Jail, there's a lot of different divisions, so it does depend on what division you go to. But it's very old. They do have some new divisions, but you've got again a lot of angry, upset people in poor conditions awaiting trial. So that's what that's like.
Is it dangerous in there?
Well, it's not dangerous for the lawyers, I don't think, but it can be dangerous for other inmates. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of angry, violent people who are your cellmates or the people that you're, having gym time with or having Bible study with. So yeah, it can be. I mean, wow. People get stabbed and shanked in Cook County Jail periodically.
Okay, so
and other things.
Yeah, you are in. You get this case of this fellow that gets a new trial. And is it you and Paul DeLuca?
No, it was myself and a man named Ricardo Bird, and we tried the case, and we won. And I can't tell you the kind of hugs that we had in the lockup because he was going to be released, and his life was given back to him. So yeah, that was another cool day.
How long?
Sometimes they're not cool days, like the one I told you where the girl got 31 years. That wasn't a fun day.
Yeah.
Either the finding guilty or the sentencing. Both of those were real difficult. So the fun days I try to remember.
You try and cherish those, right?
I do.
Yeah, because there's going to be some bad ones.
And I'm grateful when we get them. I mean, I have a lot of gratitude.
Yeah.
I really do when it goes the right way.
Anybody else that was facing a big number and you were able to?
Yeah, there's several people. I mean, there was a case in Will County where a guy was charged with basically a shaken baby of his. I think we talked about it a little bit, of his child.
His own child.
His own child.
How old was the child?
16 months. And he was he definitely said he had nothing to do with it. The baby just, he went to the crib and the baby was blue. They called 911. And basically another situation where the state had expert witnesses that said there had to be human agency that caused what they were seeing in the x-rays and the imaging. That was a case, though, that we had three experts ourselves. The defendant's mother had some means, and so we were able to kind of meet the state with our own experts. And that was a case then that the Cook County, it was in Will County, but because the baby died at Lurie in Cook County, the Cook County medical examiner took over the case and lost the brain and lost the eyes, things that our experts needed to test. And so we tried to get the case dismissed on the basis that the evidence had been lost, and it was certainly reckless of Cook County to possibly do that, because we had orders preserving the brain, preserving the eyes, things like that. Nonetheless, those were lost, and this case went on now for about 8 years because they were in the process of trying to find this stuff. But this was another case where pretrial practice, when we did the motion to dismiss the case, the law is pretty bad for the defense on that, but the judge was very much like, I think, told the state, you got some problems here. You should do something on this case. So ultimately, we did a conference with the judge, and the judge agreed to give him probation on a reduced charge. And the guy was kind of reluctant to do it because he didn't want to admit anything. And ultimately, we worked out something where he didn't have to admit it. We just acknowledged that if the evidence was presented, that potentially it would be sufficient to sustain a conviction for involuntary manslaughter. And his wife, the mother of the baby, and the mother-in-law told him, you have to take this. You can't take the risk. Right. Because anytime you go to trial and there's a dead baby, things can go wrong.
And he would have been facing 20 years.
20 to 60. 20 at the minimum.
Okay,
so 20 actual.
Oh, wow.
It's 20 actual. So it's not day for day in a murder case. So even the case I was telling you about, the bar case, 20 to 60, if convicted.
So tell me about your practice today. It's 2026. I tell people maybe they don't believe me. I don't know. But, I'm 62. And I believe that the lawyers that I have witnessed or watched in their 60s and 70s are in their prime, because they just know the system better. They know what works, what doesn't work, human factors, all that kind of stuff. Are you still hungry?
Yes, I have a guy. I've sort of been reinvigorated. I have a guy, Tim, working with me. Tim was a former Army guy, went to law school late on the GI Bill. So he's in his 40s, but he's only been a lawyer for 3 years. So he works with me, and he's really ready to go. Okay. So every day when I go to work, he's like ready to go. So even cases that, maybe the garden variety kind of cases. But here's the thing, in my work, honestly, for a client, every case they have is their own murder case. Not actually a murder case, but it really means a lot to them. Okay. So yeah, I still enjoy it. It's still important to me. And like you said, I still think this is where I can do the most good. Because if I retire, no one's going to listen to me anymore, Joe. There's no judges that are going to listen to you. You're not going to be able to help clients anymore. So I think I'm still good with doing this and still get, some joy and some value out of it. Maybe a little less patient occasionally, but I still really do enjoy it.
Yeah. I think it's just a different dynamic now. I mean, when I was growing up, I'm number 9 of 10 kids. My dad worked for the state and really looked forward to that 65 year. Yeah. And basically he was going to stop working and stop the 8 to 5. And I totally got it. We had a celebration for him. It was done. And he really enjoyed his retirement, lived to be 98 years old. Mm-hmm. But I think if he did the type of work that we do, as a lawyer, which is, so most of the people that come and say, "Hey, listen, should I go to law school?" I try and talk them out of it, just because it takes a little bit of a lot of different talents, etc., to be a lawyer that handles a fulfilling thing. Now, I'm talking to a fellow right now, with you, Dan, who got into this niche, was trained how to do it, and has made the difference in a number of people's lives, and it's been fulfilling career, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I would do it again if I could do it all over. I'd probably do the same thing.
Yeah, that's great. And I I guess I'd thought about doing some criminal defense lawyers, but I just am a little fish out of water. I like the whole thing of the fights about money, and I guess one of the things I think about it with these other practice areas, I would have a tough time dealing with it. I remember when I first started my own private practice, I was about, how old was I? 33, 34. I worked for the man, insurance companies and big, huge companies for 8 years. And then when I was 33, I opened up my own personal injury firm. And the most stressful thing that I did was agree to do my in-laws' closings, my real estate closings. And I found out all the intricacies that went into that I had no idea what I was doing. I was a complete fish out of water, and I was looking for water bills at the last minute. I was looking for all sorts of things that stressed me out more than anything. And so I said, listen, stick with what you're good at. And so I stuck with, I defended, people in big companies forever, doing, that were really big injury cases. And I said, stick to the injury. So I stuck with it. I think we've made a difference in a number of people's lives doing what we do. I'm so grateful that there's lawyers like you out there to represent the little guy. And I appreciate you, accepting my calls when I call you. And you're such a good guy. You give me your mobile number, and I call you. And I guess some of them work. We've had some funny cases over the years. I remember there's,
if you're ever interested in doing a criminal case, you want to do a jury, I'd be happy to have you.
Oh, great!
If you can try a PI case, you can try a criminal case. Trust me. Trust me.
You know what? I guess I would. It would really be selective on what I would do. It would almost be like the bar guy.
Yeah.
Because not that I don't believe in defending the system. I think that's tremendous, and all that type of stuff. But those cases like what you're talking about, when a guy is facing 20 to 60 years, and you'll never see his wife outside of a place that's got a bunch of crazy people in it, to me is like, that must be just, when you're walking down the street, I bet you he's always going to buy the meal when you go out to dinner, huh?
Oh yeah. No, he's the one guy, the bar guy's a real good guy, and kind of almost has become a friend now. So
well, that's good. Yeah, well, I appreciate you taking the time to sit with us. And I hope you'll do it again. I know last time we talked about all the books and that you read. Because one thing about Dan is he reads more books than anybody that I know. And I always, when I call him, he'll tell me, here's 3 books I'm reading, etc. And it's fascinating. That could be another podcast sometime. But I appreciate you telling us these stories. And
anything else on criminal law, criminal justice? We good?
I guess the things that I want to know, and most people want to know, is what are some of the misconceptions about what you do?
That you're just a hired gun and all you do is go to trial. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
A lot of times I get a lot of clients with substance abuse. I do a lot of I know this isn't what, I do a lot of sort of counseling of some sort, or referring people to counselors to try to deal with the problems that led them into the criminal justice system. A lot of times I'm writing mitigation letters to prosecutors, trying to get prosecutors to treat my client more favorably and more mercifully. Okay. So there's a lot more than just going to trial. There's sometimes trying to help people get sort of right in their life. I mean, so this is a business, but there's it is also kind of a civil priesthood in a way. You're trying to help people manage their lives, and it's more than just transactional is how I see it in the criminal side.
That brought up another thing. So I will send Dan a number of cases, or have sent him a number of cases where there was basically high school kids or college students that made a really, really dumb decision. I remember Dan telling me one time that none of us would want to be judged on our worst day. And that's a lot of these kids that either get, they have involved in substances or they're drinking, they go crazy, they do one really bad thing. And I know that when I send that case to you, that you will actually sit down with them and say, where are you going? Where do you want to be? Your goals, that type of thing, and treat them more like a person rather than a transaction. And that's kind of the civil priesthood you talked about. I think that's right on. I mean, I know that you will treat them like that. I watched you coach your kids, in basketball. I see how you handle people, how you treat people, and I know you'll have that talk with them. And is that something that's part of it?
Yeah, like I actually, I don't want to see them again, even if they were going to maybe get another case and provide me with another fee. I'd prefer that they actually get their life together. So like I have people that have multiple. I've had clients for 30 years. That something pops up every 10 years. Whether it's alcohol or they get 2 or 3 DUIs. I just hope that they don't have to see me in the same context. You don't ever want to be to my left in a courtroom. You'd rather come to the office and have coffee and talk about how things were bad 10 years ago. And now, because I do have people that stay in contact. So, I think you got to treat the whole person. I know that not everybody believes that. Like I had a lawyer, old lawyer said, you can't, I was probably 25 or 26. Dan, you can't get emotionally involved with these people. And I think that was reasonable advice. It's just not anything I've been able to practice,
right?
To be honest with you. Because you do get emotionally involved with these people to some degree.
It's
and not these people, your clients.
Yeah. I mean, it's like as people, I believe you don't run into anybody by accident. I think they're put in our way, and we're either going to be a plus or a minus. And my mom and dad always brought me up like that, and so
add value.
Yeah, add value. Be a plus, right? So. Well, good, and I appreciate you coming on. And we will we'll have you on again because you're fascinating. I'm sure you're going to have another underdog story for us. I want justice to be happening repeatedly. I want these good stories of the people that should be represented and came out on top. Great, and then if there's overcharging going on, I don't want that either.
Right.
So I'm grateful that we have people like you roaming in the courthouses of Chicagoland. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Sure.